Alright guys, so I am finally here with the first of what will be very many deck profiles for Cardfight Vanguard Deer Days 2 on the Nintendo Switch. So this is the sequel, obviously, to Deer Days 1, which includes the updated rules changes from the Divines era, so the 50 card main deck and the new energy mechanic and all that sort of stuff is included in this game. So for this first deck profile, we will have version 1 of my standard format Dragon Empire Wirbel deck. So this game does include both the standard format, which uses the D-Series cards, as well as the vintage format, which uses the older original series cards. So this is a standard format deck. And version 1 is everything up through the first additional card pass, so that will go up through DZ Booster Set 5. However, this deck is sort of a special case, since it actually does not include any cards from the paid DLC. However, it actually does have a handful of cards from DZ Booster Set 8, which, for one, that set is part of the second additional card pass, which I have not bought yet. And on top of that, that set actually is not released yet as of this recording. It's coming out pretty soon. I think the first week of February is when that set is being released. But those cards are available in this game, since one of the patches for this game did add the I believe 6 cards that were introduced in DZ Set 8 that were support for Wirbel Dragon. They did make it available for you to get those cards in this game without purchasing anything by using a special code that you can enter into the search bar in the in-game shop, which I'll throw up a screenshot of that code that you can put in order to unlock these cards, since that is the only way to obtain them without purchasing that DLC pack. So they did give us the Wirbel support a little bit early, in this case, since Wirbel Dragon was the standalone boss unit that was introduced in this game before it was introduced into the physical card game, which this card was printed in DZ Booster Set 8. So yeah, we got access to his support a little bit early, since he is the canonical boss unit for Ottawa Dosaki, the new protagonist that was also introduced in this game. But yeah, overall this deck is a pretty cool deck. It focuses on the new energy mechanic and having you energy blast every turn in order to pick apart your opponent's board and retire their rearguards, as well as letting you power up your own units to some pretty ridiculous numbers. So just like I did with all my deck profiles for Deer Days 1, we will be going through the deck and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first with the ride deck, the grade 0 through 2 of this ride deck are 3 of the cards that you can obtain through that code. So first off, we do have our grade 0 starter, which is Lizard Soldier G-Sin. So his auto ability, when this unit is rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. So the standard D-Series starter skill, like always. However, in this game, thanks to the new rule updates, if you win the rock, paper, scissors at the beginning of the fight, you actually get to choose now whether you want to go first or second. So you do have a little bit more control over that. So I guess when I talk about the starters for each deck, I'll say whether the deck prefers to go first or second. Which for this deck, I think it does prefer to go first. I always like going first with it, since part of your main Vanguard skill effectively requires you to Persona Ride in order to take full advantage of it. So being able to get to that a little bit sooner, I think, is helpful for the deck overall. So if you win the rock, paper, scissors and you do get to choose whether you want to go first or second, I would choose to go first in most instances. So before we move on to the grade 1 of the ride deck, I will briefly just mention the one ride deck card that they actually don't show in the deck builder in this game, since it's the same for every deck. But we do also have the ride deck crest, which was another new thing introduced with the Divines era. So I'll throw up a screenshot of that real fast and just cover it very briefly. It's basically the card that allows you to use the new energy mechanic. So this card has 4 abilities, the first of which is an auto ability that's active in your ride deck that says when you ride, you put this card into the crest zone, and if you went second, you energy charge 3. So you basically just gain access to this card as soon as you do your first ride, and if you went second, you immediately get to gain 3 energy, which energy is basically just a new resource they introduced that you can use to pay some of your costs in the form of energy blasts. So if you go first, you don't get any energy on your first turn, you just get the crest, but if you do go second, you get the crest and immediately 3 energy charged in to pay some of your skills. So then it also has a continuous ability that says you may have up to 10 energy. So if you hit the limit of 10 and you gain any more, you just won't get anything out of that. And then its second auto ability says at the beginning of your ride phase, you energy charge 3. So you gain 3 energy every turn for free, which again, energy is very, very important in this deck. And this deck actually allows you to gain energy faster than most decks. But yeah, that's the natural pace that you gain energy, just 3 per turn. And then finally, it also has an activate ability that says once per turn, you can energy blast 7 and draw a card. So this is just a generic ability to give every deck some kind of usage for their energy, since not every deck has cards that use energy, especially, older decks that don't have energy using support yet. However, this deck never really uses this ability, since you want to put all your energy into paying for Wirbel Dragon's cost, so this skill will pretty much never be used in this deck. But yeah, that is the energy generator ride deck crest. I'm not going to cover that in every single one of these deck profiles, but since this is the first one I've done, I figured I'd cover it briefly here for those not familiar with it. So anyway, moving right along to the grade 1 in our ride deck, we have Demonic Dragon Mage Gyoko. So she has an auto ability that says when this unit is rode upon by Drag Ritter as Horror, you can energy blast 3 to draw a card and choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So like I said, this is the new energy blast cost, so you can pay 3 of your energy in order to draw a card and give your Vanguard 5k when you ride on top of her. So pretty basic skill, but it is pretty useful, especially if you go second, since under normal circumstances, if you go second, you would actually hit the energy limits of 10 and not be able to take full advantage of some of your energy gaining skills. But using this ability does let you use up some of that energy beforehand, so you won't have to worry about hitting that cap, while also giving you a little extra power and a little extra card advantage with that draw. So a pretty simple skill, but pretty helpful overall. So next up for the grade 2, we of course have Drag Ritter as Horror. So his auto ability says when this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 card with Wirbel in its card name, you choose one of your Vanguards and the cost of that unit's original auto abilities is reduced by Counterblast 1 until end of turn. So again, a pretty simple ability, just makes Wirbel Dragon's main auto ability free for that one turn, so on turn 3 when you first ride into him, you will be able to use his ability without paying the cost. So very helpful in conserving those counterblasts and just helping you extend some of your plays. So very helpful skill. So then lastly for the grade 3, we have Hellfire Dragon Wirbel Dragon, who yes, looks suspiciously like Vortex Dragon if you're familiar with some of the old vintage cards, which I believe Wirbel is actually the German word for vortex, so they're obviously related in some fashion, but yeah, I'm still waiting on that lore, Bushiroad. But anyway, he has his auto ability that says at the beginning of your main phase, you energy charge 3. So this ability does let you gain a total of 6 energy per turn, with the 3 you gain naturally from your energy generator, as well as the 3 from this ability. So you'll get 3 during your ride phase, and then another 3 during your main phase. So very useful in building up that energy very quickly, which is very helpful since his activate ability says that you can energy blast 3 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and if you did not retire a card, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 10,000 instead of plus 5,000. So this is an extremely important ability in this deck, letting you energy blast 3 to either pick off one of your opponent's rear guards, or if they don't have any rear guards out, it will instead power up Wirbel Dragon by either 5 or 10k, based on what grade your opponent is currently at. So that first ability giving you that extra energy obviously gives you more uses of this ability per turn, which this is not a once per turn ability, so that means you can spam it as much as you want until you run out of energy. So you want to use this at least twice every turn in order to be able to activate his second auto ability that we'll go over in a second. But yeah, most turns you should be using this 2 to 3 times, usually is the max you can get out of that. Occasionally 4, but a minimum of 2 every turn in order to take full advantage of this card. So then lastly, he has his other auto ability that says once per turn at the end of the battle this unit attacked, if you energy blast 6 or more in total for the cost of this unit's abilities this turn, you can counterblast 1 to stay in this unit and it gets drive -2 until end of turn, and then you can soul blast 1 card with the same card name as this unit, and this unit gets drive +1 until end of turn. So again, a very helpful ability. It gives you your 4th attack every turn. Now on turn 3, you're probably not going to have another copy of this card in your soul yet, so that means he won't be able to gain any of his drives back, so at that point it's really just a glorified rearguard attack. But if you can Persona Ride consistently from turn 4 onward, you will have a copy of this card in your soul to soul blast out, so when you restand your Vanguard, he will still have 1 drive check, so that will be a +1 as well as the extra attack, and of course the extra trigger chance. So this is why I said earlier you effectively have to Persona Ride in order to get full advantage of this card. There's really no way to consistently get this card into your soul any other way than just riding another copy of it. We do have 1 card in the deck that blind soul charges, but obviously that's not going to be consistent. So yeah, the second part of this ability, gaining the extra drive, is pretty much going to be a Persona Ride turn only thing. But even if you miss your Persona Ride or on turn 3 or whatever, you still get the restand and the attack out of it, even if you don't get any extra drives. Now the entire ability is dependent on you energy blasting at least 6 times. So that will be 2 uses of his activate ability, which is why I said you want to be using that at least twice every turn. Which, even without any outside support, you will have at least 6 energy every turn from your energy generator and from Wirbel's first auto ability. So you can at least pay the cost that much in order to get his own abilities online, so he is self-sustaining, even if you don't have the right rear guards to use the ability anymore. But yeah, overall a pretty cool boss, letting you take out multiple of your opponent's rear guards per turn if they have any rear guards. If they don't have any rear guards, you can stack more and more power onto himself and then restand him in order to pressure your opponents even more and possibly get more drive checks out of it. So just a very cool boss card all around. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the grade 3s, we do have our 3 additional copies of Wirbel Dragon for our Persona Ride purposes. We don't have any fancy double frame rare or anything for him yet. We will once DZ Booster Set 8 gets released, but for right now, it's just the same card. So next we have 2 copies of the normal order, Best Harvest. So there's no cost to play this, and it lets you choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn, it gets a new auto ability that says when your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase, you draw a card. So this is a very important draw engine for this deck, since Wirbel's skill should be being used twice per turn, assuming your opponent has a board. Wirbel alone can get you 2 draws off of this ability, so that'll be a free +1 basically at that point. And we have some rear guards that can let you retire some of your opponent's rear guards during the main phase as well. So if you use those abilities, you can potentially get more out of this, assuming your opponent again has a board. If your opponent doesn't have any rear guards out, obviously this card isn't very useful, which is why we have the other normal order we'll be going over here in a second. But a lot of the support for this deck is generic, and it does focus on using a normal order every turn, so you want to either use this or the other one I'm about to go over every turn. So if your opponent has a board, definitely use this one and then pick it apart with your other skills, and you can massively increase the size of your hand. So very useful on those turns when you want to build up your own card advantage. So then lastly for the grade 3s, we have our other normal order, which is 2 copies of Drag Resonance. So again, there's no cost to play it, and its ability lets you choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets a new auto ability until end of turn. That says once per turn, when this unit stands, all of your front row units get power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So this is just a nice power-up ability. Gives your entire front row 10k when Wirbel stands off of his auto ability. So this is good if your opponent doesn't have any rear guards out, or if you're just going for your big kill turn. It can increase all of your attacks by a pretty good amount. It will not affect your first Vanguard's attack, since obviously it won't trigger until he restands. But powers up 3 of your attacks by 10k, pretty good. Again, we want to try to play a normal order every turn. Now, I'm only running 2 copies of each one, since we do have a way to search out either one we want from our deck with one of our rear guard abilities. But yeah, if you don't have Best Harvest, or it's not a good time to use Best Harvest, then this is another nice option in order to just increase your offense. So that is all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of Drag Ritter Bishara, which, yes, I believe there is a typo on the card data side. He's supposed to have 2 A's in his name when it only has 1 over there. But anyway, that aside, he has his auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you can choose a grade 3 card with Wirbel and its card name from your ride deck, and you may reveal it. And if you reveal a card, or if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wirbel and its card name, you can counterblast 1 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and if you did not retire, you draw a card. So a pretty cool ability, letting you counterblast 1 to either pick off another one of your opponent's units, or if they don't have anything to retire, you get to draw a card. So it's either a -1 to them or a +1 to you, so either way you will be gaining some sort of advantage from it. Plus, since the wording of this lets you either have a Wirbel Vanguard or reveal Wirbel from your ride deck, that means you can go ahead and use this ability on turn 2 if you want to call him down on that turn and go ahead and use the ability. Though a lot of times I like saving him for turn 3 when I can play Best Harvest first and then use this ability in order to get another draw off of it. But it's nice to have the option if you want to be able to pick off stuff on turn 2, or go ahead and gain some card advantage if you know your opponent's going to hit you hard next turn. So either way, a very useful on-call ability. And then he also has his continuous skill that says this unit gets power plus 5,000 for every Energy Blast 3 paid for the cost of the activate ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wirbel and its card name this turn. So like I said before, you should be using Wirbel Dragon's Energy Blast skill at least twice per turn. So this card should gain at least 10k every turn from his own ability, putting him to a minimum of a 20k base. If you have enough energy in order to use it a third time, he can possibly go up to a 25k base and gain 15 from this ability. So he can hit pretty big numbers pretty quickly, especially if you Persona Road that turn. And then combine it with Drag Resonance, he can easily hit 45, even 50k plus on his own. So yeah, definitely a great beat stick for the deck as well. So next up we have 3 copies of Drag Ritter Nahala. So she has a continuous ability that says if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wirbel and its card name, this unit gets boost. It also gets a extra quotation mark after the word name that shouldn't be there apparently either. But yeah, again, pretty simple ability. She just gains boost if you're a grade 3 or greater. So you can plop her in the front row, back row, anywhere you need to put her. And then she also has her activate ability, which is her main ability. That's active both on rearguard circle and in the drop zone. That says if your card with the same card name as this card was not bound this turn, you may bind this card to choose one of your grade 3 or greater Vanguards with Wirbel and his card name, and it gets a new auto ability until end of turn that says when this unit attacks, all of your front row units get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So again, a pretty nice power up ability. giving your first Vanguard attack an extra 5k, and then your other 3 attacks that turn an extra 10k, since this ability will trigger off of both of your swings from Wirbel Dragon. So a pretty nice skill. It does require you to bind this card. However, since you can't activate it from the drop zone, if you do so, it's effectively free, since you're not really losing any card advantage out of it, it's just losing a card from your drop. So ideally, you want to activate this from the drop zone most of the time. If you do activate it while she's on rearguard circle, then obviously that's a -1 to you in order to gain that little power gain, which isn't the worst in the world. And it's nice to have the option in case like you superior call this from your deck off of Latifah's skill or what have you. But yeah, ideally you want to activate this from the drop every turn. So this card makes an excellent card to discard early game for your ride deck. Or obviously it's a great 2, so you can just guard with it if you want to get it into the drop and then use its ability from there as well. So all around a pretty good card. So next up we got 3 copies of Drag Rider Latifah. So she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this card is placed on rearguard circle other than by a unit card's ability, if you played a normal order this turn, you can Soul Blast 1 to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard from among them and reveal it, and call it to rearguard circle if it is a unit card, and put it into hand if it is a normal order, and shuffle the deck. So this is one of the reasons I said you want to try to play a normal order every turn. If you play Best Harvest or Drag Resonance, then this ability will come online. So when you call her, you can do a top 5 check in order to either superior call the units or get another normal order into your hand. So it's a Soul Blast 1 for a +1. Technically it could whiff if you find like all triggers or perfect guards or something you don't want to call, but most of the time you can get something decent out of this. So it's a way to help you build your board or your hand if you find a normal order you want to grab for the next turn. So overall just a nice card in maintaining that card advantage. And then she has her second auto ability that says when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles in the same column as this unit. So if you can empty out the column in front of her, then she'll gain an extra 10k. So again, making her a pretty decent beat stick with a 20k base. And with Wirbel Dragon's ability going off twice, even if your opponent filled up that column on their turn, you can just target that column first and pick those off. So getting this ability online shouldn't be too much trouble. So a nice card in terms of both gaining advantage and being a beat stick as well. So next we have 2 copies of Twin Bullet of Duststorm, Travis. So he has an activate ability that says once per turn, if your opponent's rearguard was retired this turn, you can Counterblast 1 to Soul Charge 1 and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it, and this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So this card isn't necessary by any means. I'm mainly running this because I wanted a rearguard retiring option that wasn't on call. So this is an activate ability, so assuming your opponent doesn't get rid of Travis in some fashion, if he stays on your board, you can use this ability every turn in order to pick off another one of your opponent's rearguards, while also gaining some power and gaining some soul. Which soul isn't super tight in this deck, but having the option to gain the resource when you need it still can be helpful. Plus there's the very slim chance that you could blindly soul charge a copy of Wirbel on turn 3 and potentially get your extra drive off 1 turn sooner. But yeah, that's not going to happen most of the time. But I do like having this card just as that consistent retiring option. It does require you to have already retired one of your opponent's rearguards with one of your other skills. But again, you can just use Wirbel's Energy Blast ability to pick off one, and then use this ability to pick off another. Potentially, if that wipes out their board, that gives you a way to let Wirbel's second Energy Blast power him up as well. So just a versatile card for the deck. Not necessary. If you want to replace it with something else, you can. But I do think he ends up working pretty well. So then the last grade 2 we have is just 1 copy of the Blitz Order Defensing Roar. So there's no cost to play it, and lets you choose one of your guardians without Sentinel. And until end of that battle, it gets an auto ability that says when this unit is retired from Guardian Circle, you put this card into hand. And it also gains shield plus 10,000. So a very useful blitz order, giving an extra 10k to one of your guardians. So that means you do have to use this in conjunction with another card that you're guarding with. So it is useless on its own. However, if you guard with any unit from your hands or one of your intercepts, this card can give an extra 10k to that card and allow you to bounce that card back to your hand at the end of that battle, so you can potentially reuse that card to guard with again. So it works very well with the trigger units in your deck, since obviously they have higher shield values, especially if you get like your over trigger or something into your hand. You can guard with it and play this. That'll be 60k worth of shield, and then you bounce the 50k shield back into your hand to use again. So that can be very helpful. It does not work with perfect guards, so it won't let you reuse a Sentinel. But being able to bounce those triggers back or whatever else can definitely be useful. Another cool play I like doing with this card is if you intercept with either Latifa or Bishara, you can play this to boost them up to a 15k shield and then bounce them back to your hand in order to potentially reuse their on-call skill next turn as well. So that's another cool option with this card. So yeah, again, not a necessary card, but a pretty useful ability, so I do like having it as a one-of. So that is all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 3 copies of Mass Bullets of Duststorm Ivrines. Again, I'm making my best guess on these names. And apparently Bushiroad is too, since again, they have ammunition of Duststorm for his name in the card data, while the card image says Mass Bullets of Duststorm. I think Mass Bullets is the correct translation. I don't really know. The physical guard got printed as Mass Bullets, so I'm going with that. But anyway, he has a continuous ability that says if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wirbel in his card name, this card gets all of the following. So he gains 2 auto abilities. The first one says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, you energy charge 3, and you cannot activate the activate abilities of Energy Generator until end of turn. So this is just another way to gain even more energy, giving you 1 more usage of Wirbel Dragon's skill. It does lock you out of using the Energy Blast 7 skill of Energy Generator, but you're never going to be using that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So basically just some free energy when you call this card. So very nice skill. And he also gains a second auto ability that says when this unit boosts, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle. And if this unit is boosting a grade 3 or greater unit with Wirbel in his card name, at the end of that battle you can Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So a very, very nice ability, making him a 13k booster regardless of who he's behind. So even if you plop him behind a rearguard, he'll still boost for 13k. But ideally you want him behind your Vanguard, since when you restand Wirbel off of his own skill, you'll be able to use this ability and restand this card with a Soul Blast 1 as well, letting both your Vanguard swings be boosted by that 13k. So a very nice offensive card as well, adding power to both your Vanguard swings, and potentially being a nice rearguard booster as well, and of course giving you that extra energy resource on top. So definitely a very, very nice card for this deck. So next up we have 3 copies of Dancing Princess of Elegant Flames, Justina. So her auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, if you did not play any orders this turn, you can discard a card from hand to search your deck for up to 1 order card without Regalis Piece, discard it, and it gets a continuous ability that says this card can be played from drop, and when it would be put into drop after being played, put it on the bottom of the deck instead until the end of the turn, and then you shuffle the deck. So this is the card I mentioned earlier that does let us search out our normal orders. When you call her from your hand, you can just discard any card you want from your hand to search out either Best Harvest or Drag Resonance, send it to the drop, and then you can play it from the drop and send it back to the bottom of the deck. So being able to fish out the specific normal order you want to play that turn, whether it be the more defensive option with Best Harvest or the more offensive option with Drag Resonance, Being able to grab either one at a moment's notice is very helpful. It does not generate any card advantage since it is a -1, but playing the order from your hand would be a -1 anyway, so it works out the same. But yeah, being able to grab that important combo piece from your deck and use the specific one you want is very, very helpful. So next up we have 4 copies of Stealth Fiend Shinri. So her auto ability says when this unit boosts, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, or you played an order this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle, and at the end of that battle you can put this unit into your soul and draw a card. So just a very nice generic card that ends up being used in a lot of Dragon Empire decks. Requires your opponent to either have 1 or less rear guards, or for you to have played an order that turn, which, like I said, most turns you want to be playing a normal order, so that should be active anyway from turn 3 onward. Or if you just picked apart your opponent's board to where they only have 1 or 0 rear guards left, then you can use this regardless. But it makes her a 13k booster, and then you just shove her into soul and draw. So she cycles herself, so it's a ±0, but you do gain that extra soul resource out of it if you do need that. And it just lets you, draw through your deck a little bit faster. So definitely a good card, especially early on. If your opponent hasn't called much in the early game, you can plop it down and activate that ability and gain that early hand advantage as well. So all around, just a very, very nice card. So the only other grade ones we have are our Sentinels. So first off, we have 3 copies of the new Perfect Guard, Guardian Monk of Raging Flames, Monju. So it is just your standard D-Series Perfect Guard. It has the Sentinel ability, so you can only have up to 4 Sentinels in the deck. And then the auto ability, when this unit is put on Guardian Circle, choose one of your units. It cannot be hit until end of that battle. And if your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. So always important to have your Perfect Guards to block your opponent's attacks. And then lastly, we have our 4th Sentinel, which is 1 copy of the Nationless Splitzorder Elementaria Sanctitude. So again, it has Sentinel. It also has a continuous ability that says you may only have 1 Elementaria Sanctitude in a deck. And then its main ability says if your opponent's Vanguard has Triple Drive, this ability can be played without paying the cost. So normally you would play it by discarding a card from your hand if your Vanguard is grade 3 or less, and lets you choose one of your units and cannot be hit until end of that battle. Then you remove this card. So just an alternate option for the Perfect Guard. If your opponent has Triple Drive, it's effectively free. You don't have to discard for it. Also, the fact that it's a Blitz order does let you get around some guard restrict abilities. So definitely a staple for most decks. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which I am just running rainbow triggers for this deck. So I got 4 crits, 3 fronts, 4 draws, 4 heals, and 1 over. So first for the crit triggers, we have 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon. So the crit with a skill, he has auto ability at the end of the battle. This unit boosted, you can put this unit into your soul to choose one of your units, saying its power plus 2,000 until end of turn. So like I said, this deck isn't really soul blast heavy, so I don't really ever use this ability for anything, but it's an option if you need it, or if you end up superior calling it off of Latifah or whatever. Next for the fronts, we have 3 copies of Blaze Maiden Parama. So her continuous ability, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. So your 20k shield front trigger. Next for the draws, we have 4 copies of Flare Veil Dragon. So same continuous ability as Parama, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, shield plus 5,000. So your 10k shield draw trigger. Then for the heals, we have 4 copies of White Light Dragon Parasolus. So just the vanilla heal. As I say with all my deck profiles, if you want to run any of the effect heals for their abilities, you can. I generally prefer just sticking with the vanilla heals since they're more consistent, but that's pretty much player preference, so whatever you want to do with that. And then lastly, our 1 over trigger is of course Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Dragveda. So his additional effect lets you choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. So always an extremely powerful skill, letting you restand your Vanguard. You don't lose any drives on that either. So you will get a second twin drive out of that if you manage to check into this. Plus, since Wirbel Dragon's own restand ability is at end of battle, if you check into this, then you can just choose not to activate that ability and swing with him again, and then activate it at the end of his second swing and restand him again. So you can potentially get 3 Vanguard attacks in one turn if you sack this card. Plus, since Irene's skill isn't once per turn either, you can actually restand him multiple times in one turn too. So all 3 of those attacks can be boosted. So yeah, it just works really well with this deck overall. So that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. And I think we'll just fight Yuki this time. And we did win the rock, paper, scissors, so we do get to choose whether we want to go first or second. So I am going to choose to go first with this deck. And we'll put that heal back, and I think that's all. Alright, so we will discard Nahala to ride Gyoko. And we gain our energy generator ride deck crest. And with that, I'm just going to end my turn. And she'll use Biscotti's skill to energy blast and draw. And her starter skill will let her draw again. And I'm gonna go ahead and let that one through. Alright, so we gain our 3 energy now. And then we will discard that draw to ride as Har. And Gyoko's ability will let us energy blast 3. And we'll get to draw and give our Vanguard 5k. So I am going to just go ahead and attack. And she gets a heal trigger that is wasted, since she has nothing to heal and I don't have any more attacks. And she is not going to call any rear guards, she's just going to attack us. So I will let that one through as well. And we get a front trigger that is wasted as well. Alright, so we'll discard one of these crits, I guess. To ride Wirbel Dragon. So then, as Har's ability, we'll remove his counterblast cost. And then Wirbel's auto ability will give us an extra 3 energy, bringing us to a total of 6. Now, she has no rear guards out, so Best Harvest is actually useless this turn. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and use Wirbel's ability to Energy Blast 3. And he'll just gain 5k from that since she's only at grade 2. And then we can go ahead and call Bushiroad from our hand. And we'll use his on-call ability. Counter Blast. And again, she has no rear guard, so we get to draw. And we'll go ahead and plop Travis down as well. And unfortunately, we can't use his ability since she has nothing to retire. So, let's see, we will go ahead and use Wirbel Dragon's ability a second time to Energy Blast 3. Giving him another 5k. As well as another 5k to Bushiroad. And we'll pop Irene's behind Wirbel. And his skill will give us another 3 energy that I'm actually not going to use right now. We will save that for next turn. So I think we are good to go. So we'll go ahead and attack with Wirbel first. Boosted. And we can go ahead and use Irene's ability to gain another 5k, bring him to 36,000. We took out one of our fern bales. So now we'll use Wirbel's ability, which is cost free thanks to Azhar's skill. So we do not have to counterblast. And we can just restand Wirbel, who does lose all of his drives. But we'll go ahead and use Irene's ability to Soul Blast one. And we'll restand him as well. So then I'm going to go ahead and attack with Travis right now. Before she gets a damage trigger and he won't be able to hit anything. Like that. So that front trigger brings her to 20. So again, we're going to go ahead and poke with Bushiroad. So let's that one through too. So then we'll attack once again with Wirbel, boosted again, for 36,000. Once our booster skill activates once again. No drives this time though. She lets that one through too, wow. So we got her to 5 already. And it gives you the option to restand him again, but we don't have any reason to. As she rides into Graham Grace Sieg, which is Graham Grace's new form. And she does get a Fern Bale on her back row center. And Sieg's ability will give both our Vanguard and Fern Bale an extra crit. So we're gonna guard that. And I have a lot of shieldless cards in my hand. And her Vanguard does have triple drive thanks to Fern Bale's ability. And as much as I hate to, I think I'm gonna have to let that through. And she got no triggers off that. Nice. She did get a perfect guard though. And we get a draw trigger, which is helpful. So power to the Vanguard. And we draw another shieldless card. Come on. Alright, we just need 5 to block that, so we'll intercept with Bushiroad. And S'more's ability puts her into the soul. And again, we just need 5, so we'll intercept with Travis as well. We got another copy of both those rear guards in our hand anyway. Now Graham Grace's skill lets her draw one time. Oh, we draw our over trigger, come on. Alright, but now we can Persona Ride. And once again, Wirbel's ability. Lets us energy charge 3, bringing us up to 9 energy. So she has 3 rear guards out, but Fosato cannot be retired. So we can only take out 2. But I want the draws anyway, so we are going to go ahead and play Best Harvest. And then we will use Wirbel's ability to Energy Blast 3. And we will retire Biscotti, which will trigger the ability given by Best Harvest, which will let us draw. So then, let's see, I am going to go ahead and use Wirbel's ability one more time. So Energy Blast 3 again. And retire Pararam, which will once again let us draw. And then I'm going to call Latifa from my hand and use her ability to Soul Blast one. And we check the top 5, and we will Superior call Nahala. And let's see, we'll put her on the back row since she will gain boost from her own skill. And then I'm going to go ahead and call Bushiroad once again and use his ability. Counter Blast. And we'll draw since Fosato cannot be retired. And with that, I think we are good. So we will go ahead and attack with Wirbel first. And again, Ivory's gives him 5k. And she perfect guards. So now we can use Wirbel's ability once again to Counter Blast. And restand him. And then we can Soul Blast out the Wirbel in our soul to give him +1 drive. And again with Soul Blast to restand our booster as well. So then we'll attack once again with Wirbel Dragon. Who will be swinging for 36,001 drive this time. Perfect guards again. So then we'll attack with Bushiroad, boosted by Nahala for 40,000. And she goes. And I could possibly press for game here, but I'm gonna just pick off her rear guard. And Latifah's skill will give her an extra 5k since there's one open circle in front of her. We'll get rid of that Fosato by attacking him since we can't retire him by abilities. She does get her Persona Ride, which will power up her front and back row. But she called a perfect guard to her back row center. Wow. So she must have nothing in her hand worth building a board with. Yeah, and that's the only attack she's gonna get to. Wow. Alright, so we will go ahead and just perfect guard that one to be safe. And we will discard. And I'll drop one of these Justinas. Alright, so let's see. We'll just go ahead and... I could guard that with one trigger, but I want to open up that front or rear guard circle, so I'm going to do an unoptimal guard here, but I'm pretty sure we got our next turn anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. I will drop that other Latifah. Alright, so I'm going to declare final turn, because I'm pretty sure we got her. And then we're going to Persona Ride. And Wirbel skill lets us energy charge once again. Alright, so let's see, we're going to go ahead and call Travis. And then we're going to play Drag Resonance. So that'll give Wirbel the auto ability to gain more power. So we'll use Wirbel's activate ability. And she has no rear guards out once again, so he will gain 10k this time, since she's at grade 3. So we'll use that ability again. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use it one more time, since we got the energy to do so. Bringing Wirbel all the way to 53,000, and Bushiroad to 35. So we'll plop Shinri behind Travis, And we actually only have one face-up damage, so we actually can't use Travis's ability anyway, even if we did have anything to retire. Which does make us tight on soul, so we actually won't be able to restand Irene's, but that's fine. So from our drop, I'm going to go ahead and use the ability of Nahala to bind her, giving yet another ability to our Vanguard. So with that, we are ready to roll. So we're going to attack with Wirbel first, and I am not going to boost since we won't be able to restand our booster. But this will trigger Wirbel's ability, granted by Nahala, to give our front row plus 5k. And she drops her last perfect guard. So now we can use Wirbel's auto ability to counterblast. And he will restand, and we can soul blast out to the other copy of him to give him +1 drive, which also triggers the ability granted to him by drag resonance, which gives our front row another 10k. Bring them up to ridiculous numbers. So we'll attack once again with Wirbel, boosted this time. Which again triggers Wirbel's ability from Nahala, giving 5k to the front row. And our booster giving him another 5k, bringing him all the way to 86,000 +1 drive. And yeah, she's got to let that through. And we get a draw trigger on top of that. So we will give that power to Travis. And unless she heals out, we should have her. And yep, we got her with that one. So there you go, that was version 1 of my Wirbel deck. I do really like the way this deck plays, especially with the dedicated support he got from DZ Booster Set 8. It lets you hit some absolutely insane numbers with your front row, and that's always fun to do. So anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. I have an absolute shitload of these that I'm going to be making for both standard and vintage format. I believe next up I will be doing my Graham Grace deck. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.